I'm outside the court where US history was made. Finally, a verdict in this case and a legal reckoning for a former president. But the political impact of this decision won't be fully understood until Americans vote in November. One of Donald Trump's last moments before becoming a convicted felon. It took a jury of 12 ordinary New Yorkers a day and a half to reach a verdict, declaring the former president guilty of all 34 counts of falsifying business records.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
The jury found Donald Trump falsified the records to cover up hush money paid to porn star Stormy Daniels on the eve of the 2016 election, to silence her claim of a sexual encounter a decade earlier and protect his campaign.
We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
Trump's lawyers will likely appeal against the verdict. His supporters echoed his argument that he'd been unfairly targeted.
I never voted for him the first time, but we'll do it this time. It's a disgrace.
Even if Trump goes to jail, gets out, or gets bail, or whatever, we're all going to vote for Trump still.
But others were overjoyed at the decision to make Donald Trump the first ever former US president convicted of a crime.
I don't expect him to go to jail, but a lie is a lie and a conviction is a conviction.
Trump is facing a potential prison term, but many legal experts expect the judge would take his lack of a prior criminal record into account and consider probation.
I'm so pleased that there's finally some accountability for Donald Trump.
The man who brought the case, Democratic District Attorney Alvin Bragg, insists it was handled like any other.
While this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors.
But in a polarised America 5 months out from the election, the political impact is yet to be measured. President Joe Biden's campaign releasing a statement arguing no one is above the law. The only way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office is at the ballot box. Donald Trump's wife Melania was absent from the trial, so too his daughter Ivanka. But she posted to Instagram, "I love you, Dad." International reaction has been more tempered.
I obviously have, people might have observed, a close relationship with President Biden. We get on very well. But the relationship between Australia and the United States is a relationship between nations, not just between individuals.
Donald Trump will be sentenced in July, just days before he's expected to be confirmed as the Republican nominee. Donald Trump's conviction came after weeks of painstaking testimony of sex scandals, tabloids and cover-ups. A former ally turned against him, offering key evidence for prosecutors to secure their win in the hush money case.
From US president to convicted felon on 34 counts, Donald Trump's trial was a salacious and unpredictable affair. At its centre, whether the former president falsified business records to cover up a bribe paid to porn star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 campaign.
This fake case was brought only to interfere with the upcoming 2024 election, and it should be dropped immediately.
96 random civilians were whittled down until 12 took their place in the jury. Each day drawing throngs of vocal supporters and opponents, as well as global media. The prosecution's witness list included everyone from political spin doctors to the former president's close friends. Among them, tabloid publisher David Pecker. He testified he'd been involved in a scheme burying news stories that could have damaged Mr. Trump's first run at the White House. When Ms. Daniels took the stand, she aired explicit details of their sexual encounter at the heart of the hush money payment, prompting the defence to call for a mistrial, a request the judge ultimately rejected. The prosecution's star witness, though, was Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal attorney and political problem solver. He told the jury the former president had known everything and had covered it up to protect his campaign. Testimony from a former right-hand man proving key to the conviction handed down in this courthouse in downtown Manhattan. Perhaps more than anything, Donald Trump is a product of New York City. His brash demeanour and the kind of business approach many here would call hustle have also defined his life in the public eye. In New York, Donald Trump built his name. And today, 12 New Yorkers bestowed a new title, convicted criminal. With 2 impeachments and civil trials finding him liable for sexual assault and fraud, this isn't the first time Donald Trump has made US political history for the wrong reasons, and it might not be the last. He still faces another 3 criminal cases, 2 relating to alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election result, and 1 over the handling of classified documents. But they're unlikely to go to trial before US voters choose their next president in November. Carrington Clarke, ABC News, New York.
Well, Donald Trump has managed to galvanise support off the back of all of his criminal cases, easily winning the Republican nomination earlier this year. North America correspondent Barbara Miller joins me now from Washington. Barbara, Donald Trump is due to be officially confirmed as the Republican nominee just days after he's sentenced. How has the party responded?
Look, we've really seen top Republicans rally around Donald Trump. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, for example, saying it was a shameful day in American history, and that kind of sentiment echoed by many of Donald Trump's allies. But even those who have a more complicated relationship with the former president have come out in support of him. I'm thinking there of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, for example, saying that the charges should never have been brought. Not much room for dissent then, at least tonight. And in fact, when one well-known Republican, Larry Hogan, came out and said that the rule of law should be respected, he was immediately shot down by a top campaign official. What's going to be interesting is how this plays with the voting public. And polls have consistently shown that if he's actually convicted, that some Republicans would reconsider whether or not to vote for Donald Trump.
And what about Joe Biden's campaign? How's it playing this?
Well, we saw that very quick response from the Biden campaign saying that the verdict showed that no one was above the law, but also really trying to drive home the message that, felon or not, Donald Trump will be contesting this November's election. And the only way, they said, to keep him out of the Oval Office is at the ballot box. I think that's partly a call to Democrats to turn out in November, and that's amid concerns that Joe Biden is losing support among some key constituencies. Now, we haven't heard directly from Joe Biden today. He initially didn't comment on this trial. More recently, he's chosen to mock Donald Trump over it. And we saw that stunt this week from the Biden campaign where they sent Robert De Niro down to the courthouse. So I think they're still trying to work out how to play this. Now, of course, it's all about the money, and the Republican side is saying that one of their websites crashed because of the flow of donations coming in the wake of this verdict. That will be a concern if it's true to the Biden campaign, and something else, Jade, to watch over the coming days.
Barbara Miller in Washington, thank you. As Americans digest the verdict, there are major questions hanging over Donald Trump's campaign for the White House. Our Global Affairs Editor John Lyons has more.
Donald Trump will be sentenced on the 11th of July. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 4 years. So prison time is possible, but legal experts believe it's highly unlikely.
Likely, Mr. Trump will receive a non-custodial term and possibly a fine and so forth.
Whether he ends up behind bars or not, Donald Trump can still run for president. There is a precedent. In 1920, the socialist candidate Eugene Debs ran from prison while serving a 10-year sentence. He got 3% of the vote. And what if Trump wins in November? Could he pardon himself? Not only is that power untested, it only applies to federal crimes, and this conviction happened in a state court. So that would leave him relying on the New York governor and she's a Democrat.
There's still plenty to play out in the United States over the next 5 months as we get closer to the election. But for now, that's all from an historic day here in New York City.